Right, so we are going to learn how to find the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. So the first question is, do the following matrices have inverses? And so in order to determine if they have inverses, you have to determine that, which means find the determinant. Okay? And if the determinant is 0, then there is no inverse. If it's anything but 0, then you can find the inverse. So does anybody remember how to find the determinant of a 2 by 2? What do I multiply first? -3 times 3, which is -9. So I'm going to put determinant of A equals -9. And then what do I do? Add or subtract? Subtract. And then what am I going to do? The other one, right? 1 times 6 is 6. And -9 minus 6 is -15. Okay. So does this matrix have an inverse? Yes. Yes. Matrix A has an inverse because why? The words? If it says why, otherwise you know. Okay, but matrix A has an inverse because determinant of A is not equal to 0, right? So if it did equal 0, you'd be done because there is no inverse. So it says, what is A inverse? A inverse means what is the inverse? Right? And so you have to remember in your notes what the formula for the inverse of a 2 by 2 is. Okay? It says if you have matrix A, then to find A inverse, you take 1 over the determinant, which is the same thing as dividing by the determinant. You take the A and the D and you swap them. So the D becomes the A and the A becomes the D. And you take B and C and keep them the same, but you change the sign. Okay? So we said that we do what with these two? We swap -3 and 3. So it's going to be 1 over -15. And we said we swap 3 and -3, right? Now it looks like we changed the sign, which we did, but really what we're trying to get at is that we swapped them, okay? And then here you keep them the same, but you change the sign. So 1 becomes -1, 6 becomes -6, okay? You guys understand what I did? So I moved the 3 here and the -3 here, and then you change the signs of those two. So if that had been -6, then this becomes a +6. Okay. All right. Now what this means is take this matrix divided by -15. Let's just make sure we're doing it correct. Yes, we are. So 3 divided by -15. And let's just write down the work just so we have it in our notes, okay? Otherwise it may be confusing. And so 3 divided by -15, how does that reduce? Let's see. 3 divided by 3 is 1, 15 divided by 3 is 5. So can I write that as -1/5, right? Is that right? Correct? And most of the time you bring the negative up to the numerator, it just looks nicer. And then -6 divided by 15, ooh, I forgot my negative. -6 divided by -15 makes a positive, right? The 3 goes in a bow, so it'd be 2 over 5. Yeah, 2/5. And then here, negative over negative makes positive. So it'd be 1 over 15. And then here, negative over negative makes positive, and 3 over 15 reduces to 1/5. Okay. Now you may recall that this inverse, because it is an inverse of matrix A, if I were to take Anyone remember if I were to take A times A inverse, what do I get? What do you get when you take A times A inverse? If this is a 2 by 2 and that's a 2 by 2, you get the identity, right? Remember, that's how you know if two matrices are inverses. You have to take A times A inverse, the one that they think is an inverse. So in other words, if I were to take this matrix times this matrix, either way, either this times this or this times this, I will get the identity, okay? All right, B. Let's do B together, and then I have one for you to do yourself. So first we need to do what? We need to determine if there's an inverse. So how do you do that? Find the determinant, correct? And so it's what? 20? Just 2 times 10 is 20. Minus. And then 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. Right? And so that becomes 20 plus 20, which is 40. So yes, there is a determinant. Yes, there is an inverse, correct? Okay. Now, this almost came close to being 0. And if it were 0, we would stop. And we would say no inverse. Yeah. All right. So I put 1 over 40, correct? And then what do we do? We swap the 2 and the 10. So the 10 goes here, the 2 goes here. Okay. You swap those two. And then you do what to these two? Change the sign. So this becomes negative 5. That becomes 4. And then your next step is just to divide them all by 40. Now the common mistake people make is they swap and switch before they find the determinant. You have to find the determinant first and then swap and switch. So doing some simple math in my head, 10 over 40 reduces to 1/4. 4 over 40 reduces to 1/10. Negative 5 over 40. See, 5 goes into 40, what, 8 times? So it'll be negative 1/8. And 2 over 40 would be 1 over 20, right? So that is my inverse. My inverse is, so let's go ahead and spell it out this time. A inverse equals 1/4, 1/10, negative 1/8, and 1/20. So I did 2 problems for you. Those are 2 by 2s. You can also find the inverse of a 3 by 3. It's much trickier. If you have time, I'll show you that here in a couple days. But let's just stick with 2 by 2s. So see if you can find the inverse of this matrix.